Hi, I'm Casey Lueders, and this is Could Be Pretty Cool. We've had a lot of conversations on this show about AI and creative work. Designers, filmmakers, musicians, arts organizations, all trying to figure out what it actually means for what they do. We've even made our own AI spoken word poetry album, Word Games, way back in 2023. And the conversation is still evolving. The questions haven't gone away, they've just gotten more specific. Today's guest is Hogan Shrum, co-founder of PIPPA, a platform that turns your idea or even something like a story you recorded on your phone into a fully produced animated cartoon. He spent his career in advertising and experiential marketing, and he still runs an agency. PIPPA is also taking an unusual approach to how human artists are engaged and compensated in the AI space. We get into that and also into whether there's a version of AI in the creative process that artists could actually live with. Today, we have the opportunity to chat with Hogan Shrum, who is building a tool that is very fascinating for the creative economy for folks who are interested in animation and AI creation. And we're going to dive into all of that. But first, Hogan, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit more about your pathway to building PIPPA.
Sure. Great to be here. Thank you for having me, Casey. So yeah, my background stems from, I've spent virtually my entire career on the advertising and marketing side. I also own an agency that's still operating, doing well. Our focus has always been on experiential marketing, as well as content and social media storytelling for brands, specifically for our agency in the consumer packaged goods, food and beverage space. And so that's what I've spent the majority of my career doing and building. And as AI rose as quickly as it's risen over the past couple of years, obviously, as an agency, that was always in the back of my mind of staying ahead in terms of leveraging these tools in the right way. Thankfully, as an experiential agency, at least, we're probably the most protected of the agency world, given that we produce live experiences that AI can't replicate. But obviously, the content side is impacted, and we believe in a positive way. And the story behind PIPPA is another thing I do on the side is I advise and invest in CPG brands that are early stage through an accelerator called SKU based out of Austin, Texas. And through that, I met who is now co-founder of PIPPA, Sean Wright. His background, he's always been on the operations side, very bleeding edge ahead on all things technology. He spent about 7.5 years at Apple and then made a switch and ended up spending another 7 years at Hershey in the world of chocolate. But on the side, he's also just been, frankly, an AI nerd in the best way, in that staying ahead and learning how to create his own AI tools, his own automations. And one of those things that he did was a personal project where he, like me, is a dad. His kids are, I think, 4, 6, and 8. Somewhere around there, 4, 6, 10 maybe. But he's been really passionate about when he would put his kids to bed, telling them bedtime stories that he would make up. And then as each of the kids was growing older, they would contribute to the stories. So it became this nice bonding moment for all the kids and him. And he would start recording these on his phone for posterity, right? For memory. And his wife stopped him once and said, "They make those AI books. You should take these stories and turn them into AI books with our kids." And that made him think, that's boring. What if I could create a cartoon? And this is before a lot of the platforms that are out there now. So he built his own tool where he could upload the audio of these recordings he'd made and turn them into studio quality animations of any different style, featuring his kids as uploading pictures and getting the characters to be their likenesses, using their real voices, lip syncing the whole thing, etc. And he showed me this and I was like blown away. One, a little bit more about me. Even before I started my career, growing up, I'd always wanted to be in the movie business. I went to film school for a little bit coming out of high school because I'd always wanted to be the next Spielberg, so to speak, or act or whatever it was, just because I loved storytelling so much, and quickly realized that there was a huge risk as far as making money, how long that might take. I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri, so it's not like I had any connections or ins in Hollywood. and basically, like I said, chickened out and decided to pivot to a business career, but then held on to the creative needs that I have by going into advertising. So when I saw this tool that Sean had built for himself, being able to create essentially animated films from the most basic of ideas, this was like a dream come true for me personally, first and foremost. I'm like, oh my gosh, I would use this like crazy. But then it dawned on me that, wow, like what he's doing still involves a lot of prompting, a lot of AI expertise. But what if we could build a platform that would truly democratize creativity and animation while preserving the creative ownership over what's being produced? Because the biggest issue I had, like I said, I work in advertising and creative. I use AI tools for image generation, video generation. The biggest frustration is always you're at the mercy of what AI gives you if you're not a prompting expert. And even with the tools that are available to this day, if you want to upload audio or a story and create an animated cartoon, you're either on one of two ends of the spectrum. One is you're super pro. You know how to do all of this prompting. You can use a tool like Higgsfield or Midjourney, etc., to build very effective, like amazing content. But if you don't know how to do that in the level of detail that an expert AI video generation coder does, you're not going to get a great output. On the flip side, they now have a lot of tools that kind of position themselves in a similar way to PIPPA, but it's much more upload your audio, upload a story, upload some pictures, pick your animation style and hit a button, and it gives you an animation. But there's nothing in between, right? I want to see the storyboard first. I want to see how it's planning out to do this animation. Is it going to match what's in my head? And moreover, being in the advertising space and understanding how brainstorming works, the idea that you start with is never really the idea you finish with. And the reason for that is as you're going through the process, it's iterative, right? Seeing something come to life in an animation may have sounded great on paper, but doesn't look quite as good as I thought it would when it comes to actually quote unquote filming it. And so there's a lot of sort of evolution in working the project to bring that idea to its full fruition, to its full life. And so there was no tool out there that allowed that. And so we set out to build something that would capture the best available tools with AI right now, but enable people, anyone, whether you may have zero experience at any kind of storytelling, but you have ideas. My ideal was like, if we can build this so an 8-year-old can use it and put in an idea and create a cartoon that's bringing their idea to life, we have hit the holy grail of now anybody can pour their creativity out in this artistic way and really feel like it's theirs, right? That it wasn't just an idea and I settled on what the AI gave me because I'm not a coder, but that throughout this process, they're able to see the storyboards. They're able to see the prompts that are automatically developed, which are detailed enough to give you an idea of, okay, this is how this is going to animate. And then be able to not only produce the animation, but to within the same tool, add music, sound effects, add in more voiceovers, do your own voices if you want for, say, fictional characters. To make basically my dream come true of if I wanted to make a cartoon, here's all the things I would want control over, but I'm not an AI prompting expert. So how do we create this experience and not just make it about input, wait, get output, and have the actual creation be the experience? Have it be fun. Have it essentially like having a production companion that helps you see your vision, but also takes direction in layman's terms. So if I don't like the way a scene looks, I just want to be able to tell it, here's how I see this playing out, but I don't want to have to write that in an official prompt for fear of making errors. And when you make errors in prompting with AI, you pay for it, literally. And so that's what we've built. And at this stage, it is very fun and effective. And then the last, but certainly not least important thing is Sean's family. 2 of his sisters are creators. One of them is an animator. I work with plenty of designers. I know the sentiment on AI when it comes to designers and animators in particular, or artists really of any kind. And our goal and belief is that AI, in the way it's being used now, does support AI theft, AI art theft. And we want to do the opposite. So The idea is that we are actively inviting artists to join our platform. They submit up to 10 pieces of their work. They go through a validation process where we confirm they are, in fact, the original artist. They have the rights to license their work. And we create an animation style based on their portfolio of work that they've submitted. Anytime a user generates images or animations using that art style, the artist receives royalties and commissions for every minute. Even if it's a minute that was scrapped and reanimated, they get paid. And our PIPPA channel, where we're going to be featuring and growing all of this content, any ad revenue or things that come from that for any artist that has their work on the platform, they receive a portion of that as well. So we want this to essentially be, for lack of a better comparison, like Spotify for artists.
Interesting. There are many arguments for a lot of creatives right now, either for or against using AI as a part of the creation process. And we've had many guests who've talked about how they use AI for administrative tasks or helping to make things on the business side a little easier. But when it comes to the creative process, there's like a hard line of you can't use AI for that. But I'm really fascinated by this model of licensing an animation style so that if people are using the platform, it's almost like an ethical use of someone else's work because they're being compensated for that. I would love to know, how did that develop? Is this something that you've seen in the field on other platforms? Is this something that you all were like, oh, if we're going to do this, we need to figure out how to lead this model? Yes. Where did that idea come from?
I'd say it originated more with Sean just because he has that immediate family representation. And to this day, his sister, who's an animator, literally hates the idea of what we're building still. Because look, it needs to be proven out, and we know that. But I also am a huge supporter of that, bought in immediately, because I too work with many different designers, and we use AI for certain levels of image creation when it comes to our work. But we use it in a way that I alluded to before, which is we use it with our designers as a means of brainstorming, as a companion to expedite what we can build with our designers. Because no matter what, we build in real life structures and experiences, right? We work with brands who have very specific guidelines for how their brand is represented, designed, how it shows up in every medium. So we cannot rely solely on AI for these things. And so because of those guardrails inherently built into my agency business, I already saw how AI could be supportive to artists in a business setting and accelerate their ability to do more of their work. And so it made a lot of sense to me from a business side of things, and from Sean's side of things, as someone who has a personal relation with the artist community. It almost became a mission for us to prove, look, no, there is a world in which AI can greatly benefit artists. We just need to show them. We need to give them that experience and prove that this can be done ethically. And again, when you go on and as we build up our artist community, our objective is to eliminate any AI art stories. That 100% of the styles available on PIPPA will be licensed by real artists. They will be marked as such. Within that style, you'll be able to learn more about the artist. They will get credit for it. And again, on our back end, we're already tracking. Anytime that's used, you earn money. And we feel like not only does that address the issue with how artists feel about it, but look, there's a good segment of the population who are not artists who support artists and support their thinking around the use of AI, creation of AI slop, as they say. And it's real. And you know what? As someone who's worked in this community, maybe not as an actual artist who does these things, I get it. I get it. There's no argument against it. It's not right what's happening now, but there is a right way it can be done.
I would love to know, from what you're seeing now, what are some of the primary use cases for PIPPA? I think it's really interesting how you mentioned your partner This sort of started with him wanting to tell customized stories for his children. I remember growing up, my mom used to order us, I don't know where she'd get them from, but storybooks where they would put our names in them. So I'd be like, Casey went to the store. And I'd be like, oh my God. So this sounds like a modern evolution of that. I've also had friends who have wanted to make pilots of animated series, but they didn't have the funds to be able to make a full pilot. So we've just done audio versions of their concepts because that's all we could figure out how to do. So what are some of the use cases that you're seeing with PIPPA, or what are some of the possible use cases? Is this, as you said, something that is aiming towards being like an idea generator for other things? Can people eventually make shorts or feature animated films from scratch and having them just be out into the world? What are some of your thoughts about the functionalities?
Great question. And this is going to sound maybe a little crazy, but the possibilities as we've continued to learn are literally endless. But the ones that we're clearly seeing now are a variety. So, for example, if you're a content creator on Instagram, TikTok, it can do a variety of things. The great thing is it really is a sort of, if you come in with a fully baked story you've written, if you come in with something you've recorded on your phone, like you chose to log your story that way and it's fully complete, you can start there. But let's say you just have this idea. Here's a great example. I was talking to a client that was mentioning PIPPA to her briefly, and she says, wow, that's really cool. I think my daughter and I would love that. She's 5. She's in that stage where she asks why about everything. And yesterday she asked me why there was beads of water on the outside of her glass. And she said, how do I explain condensation to a 5-year-old? And I said, I'll show you. And in 15 minutes, I started with the basic idea. I want to make a video that explains condensation to a 5-year-old using a cartoon that's narrative in style, not necessarily straight up just telling you what this is. And within 15 minutes, it wrote the story, the script, created the storyboard, and then I was able to go in and confirm it was exactly the way it should be, animate it with sound fully produced inside of 15 minutes. And it was a 1-minute video where this girl, the young girl, puts her glass of lemonade down and looks and sees the beads of water. And then one of them comes to life as an animated water drop and explains how condensation works in a way a kid would understand it. Came out super cute, super fun. She's blown away. She's like, wow. And so that opened up, not just can this be useful for parents in that example? That's one use case. Then it made us realize, and we're already seeing this with our users, there's a big interest from the world of education. Because if you're a school district or a teacher, and you can now incorporate literally within less than an hour, an animated portion of your lesson that kids will find entertaining and stay super engaged with, amazing. On the flip side, imagine it goes the other way. Instead of assigning a kid some homework that they fill out a sheet, or they have to write a small 1-page essay on whatever they learned about the American Civil War. What if it was go home and create a 30-second, 1-minute cartoon using PIPPA about something you learned from the Civil War in any style you want, and it turns the learning process into this creative experience that then becomes something the children are more engaged with, they're more likely to retain, and it's the opposite of the way technology has been used poorly in education since it was introduced.
No, when you mentioned that, I was thinking the very same thing. A lot of the conversations that I have about AI content with folks, I often think about, they're saying like, this isn't, you can tell that this wasn't done by a human, or this isn't the same as if this were hand drawn. But I'm thinking the future audiences for this content, number one, the content is going to continue to improve. It's improving like exponentially.
Yeah.
The younger audiences who are going to be growing up on this content, I don't think are going to have the same reference point, nor are they going to be as, I remember maybe 10, 15 years ago when more and more movie theaters, they stopped having film projectors and were switching to digital. And so my film friends were like, boo, we can tell the difference. Digital will never take over film. And here we are. I truly believe that this next generation, 10, 15 years from now, most content isn't going to be something where they're able to discern and or care whether or not it was generated by AI or by humans, which the hot take and could be pretty cool today. But hearing that you're thinking about potential educational use cases for the technology, I also think is something that we just collectively are going to have to figure out, because these kids are going to grow up with this stuff in their toys, on their phones that they'll have since they're 2 and 3 years old. So yes, how can we make it useful and not just something they're staring at all day long?
Yeah. And look, it's idealism at its finest, right? Which is, this isn't going anywhere. But I think if anyone thinks about it long and hard enough, you'll realize this isn't going away. And what this is really going to do, this being, call it AI in general, if done correctly and harnessed the right way, this will empower more people to do more, be better, hopefully learn more, so long as we're not letting it run free with false information. But if we keep the humanity of it tied together, meaning we use it in ways that enhance a human's ability to create, invent, improve, etc. But there has to be that human element of input and guidance along the way. Again, it's a companion. It's not a replacement. It's like now everyone has their own personalized assistant with endless capabilities, but you still want them to do and bring whatever your vision is to life the way you want it represented. And that was why it was so important that the retention and encouragement of creative control throughout the process of creating these videos, for example, is the big differentiator. It's someone can go in and, regardless of use case, feel good about the final output because they made the decisions throughout the process and they had the opportunity to say, thumbs down, no, change it this way. Let me see it this way. And it becomes, for me at least, in the best way, addictive, in that it just makes me create more. I used to paint a lot. Once you get in on that painting and you're going for a good 15 minutes, the world kind of shuts off and you're in this creative headspace where that's the entire focus, but you're engaged. You're not watching something happen, you're doing it. And that's the feeling and the experience that this intends to replicate. But back to your other, like the use cases, other examples, like my world, there are so many agencies out there that produce content. And one of the issues that has still exists to this day with most consumer friendly AI, they can't replicate brand logos well. They can't, if you want to, in my world, if you want to sell a beverage, you want to have it on in a cartoon, you want to make sure it looks like your actual beverage, even if it's the cartoon version. It has to be the exact right colors. It has to have the exact logo, no changes. And we've gotten it so good that you can read the nutrition label, even if it's a Disney level cartoon. So now whether it's an in-house brand content creator or, hey, we're launching a new product, we want to create an animated ad. You can do that and know that your brand style guide, everything that's important to you as a brand and non-negotiable is covered. So there's that side of the business, the content creator side. Another feature now that we've launched recently is content creators, as long as it's not copyrighted material, which again, we have all the checks in place for. You can take a post that was hugely popular for you, upload that video, choose what animation style you want it in, and it will replicate it shot for shot using the original audio with all the details and turn it into an animated version of that piece of content. And you'll be surprised how far that goes when you turn something into Lego. It's pretty amazing. So again, the possibilities really are endless.
And I think there's so many aspects of folding AI into the creative process. I think it's just fascinating what you said about how you used to paint and how that creative process, or that creative enjoyment, is spilling over now into prompting and generating videos through PIPPA. Are we about to, I don't know, speaking of discernment, are we as humans about to be able to discern between the joy of doing something that's tactile, tangible, and the joy of creating something via AI digitally? I don't know. I'm sure, of course, there's going to be differences.
And again, I get the argument when it comes to that. Is that a perfectly apples to apples something you can replicate? No, there's the tangibility of it to a degree. Some of the ways that I look at it are, let's say you put in the 10,000 hours. You are an expert painter, right? You want that to be something of value. What AI is doing is basically saying, okay, now someone can spend 500 hours getting that good. But what if they still spend 10,000 hours? Then how good do they get? That's how I see AI. It's an accelerator of human ability if you commit to it and use it effectively, right? For those that use it and don't spend the time and try and create, you said this earlier, when it comes to AI content, if it's not been heavily influenced by the human creative process, people know. It doesn't need to say this is AI or this is not AI. You can tell, right? And that's another reason, by the way, we are not interested in going into real life photorealism video generation. Because one of the other things we are against is trying to pass something off as real when it isn't. And you know what can't pass off as real? A cartoon. And so if when we stay in that lane, it again upholds how we view AI and how it can really be a benefit if thought of and approached the right way.
This has been very interesting. And again, thinking of just the various ways that AI is going to impact all industries, but particular creative industries, and how the approach to using it can be both ethical and something that, as you said, it augments the human creative experience, not something that is going to replace it or take away from it, are all aspects of the conversation that a lot of us are having right now. So if someone was interested in learning more about PIPPA, if someone's interested in figuring out, is there a use case for me in here somewhere? Yeah. What's the best way for them to find out more about it?
Yeah. So first and foremost, go to gopippa.ai, GOPIPPA.ai, create a free account. It's free to try and frankly affordable if you went for a monthly plan. Monthly plan starts at $15 a month. That'll probably get you anywhere, depending on how much time you spend, 5 to 10 minutes of a fully produced animated cartoon. Our most popular for those that use it more frequently is $50 a month. And that you're getting anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes. So back to your point on what can people truly create here? Could they create an animated film? 100% yes. And that would probably cost under $1,000, which is mind-blowing. Now, like we talked about, AI versus real human creativity, the cream's going to rise to the top, and the cream will always be, what did this idea and does this story feel like something that came from a human being? You can even tell when people have their speeches written by AI, because it just chooses things that don't feel quite human. And so we want that to be eliminated in how you engage with this platform. So go to gopippa.ai, try it out. The good news is when you start, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can go into the wizard, which will give you more options and more control, or you can start with, it'll ask you questions about what you want to create and it'll help you create it. You don't even need to have an idea. Just go in and it'll say, what kind of story do you want to tell? You can answer adventure. And then you can ask it for suggestions. It will help you test it out and build an idea. Or if you have an idea to start with, it'll help you write the story, but you can edit it along the way. So go try it out at whatever stage you're at and see what it can produce. And the goal being, the more time you spend with it, the more fun you have, the more excited you're going to be about the output. Because I've spent enough time doing it now, I can say unequivocally that all of my final projects came out exactly the way I wanted them to.
All right. Hogan, thank you so much for coming to chat with us today. And yes, this is another fascinating conversation in our ever-evolving AI and creativity journey. So thank you for being a part of it.
My pleasure. I could talk about this subject forever. So thank you. I appreciate you having me.
There are a few things that stuck out with me from that conversation. First, the middle of the process is the product. Hogan's whole critique of existing AI tools is that they're built as input, wait, output. You either need to be a prompting expert or you take whatever the machine hands you. What he's arguing for is the messy middle, the storyboard, the no, not like that, like this. Because in any real creative process, the idea you start with is rarely the idea you finish with. Second, ethical AI has to be structural. Anyone can say they support artists, but PIPPA's version is a validation process, a licensing agreement, and a royalty that pays out per minute of use, including minutes that get scrapped and redone. Whether it works at scale is an open question, but it's a mechanism and not just a mission statement. Third, staying out of photorealism is a position. PIPPA isn't trying to generate realistic videos, and Hogan's reason is simple. A cartoon can't pretend to be real. That's a boundary a lot of companies in this space aren't drawing. And finally, the reference point is going to move. We talked about it in this episode, and I'll continue to think about it. I mentioned how my film friends swore a digital projection would never replace actual film. These kids growing up with the technology that we have today won't have the same reference point we do, and probably won't have the same reactions to the technology that we're producing and consuming. That doesn't settle the ethical questions, but it does mean the you can always tell when something's made by AI argument may have a shelf life. For more on this, AI ownership, and where the creative economy goes from here, head to our Substack. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Farewell, and may all of your creative endeavors flourish. Could Be Pretty Cool News is a Could Be Pretty Cool original production. Created, hosted, and executive produced by Casey Lueders. Senior producer is Liz Moore, and supervising sound editor is Trinity Jackson. Our original theme music was composed by Camille Stennis and cover art design by AJ Johnson. To learn more about Could Be Pretty Cool and discover whatever else we're up to, visit us at couldbeprettycool.substack.com. Thank you for listening.